Welcome back, attendees. It's time now for our second session. But before that, I want to invite Mr. Matthew from JIS Ghana for a presentation. Welcome to screen, sir. Just a moment, attendees. Let me introduce you to the esteemed panel that we have today. Miss Queen from Women in Renewable Energy, who will be our moderator for the evening. Mr. Williams from Jinko Solar Limited. Mr. Kolawole from NG Solar Access Nigeria, Miss Cleopatra from Stella Futura, Miss Badejo from Heaven Hills Energy Limited, and Mr. Okafor from Starside Energy Limited. I welcome all the panelists on screen, and I would like uh, Miss Queen to lead the session. We'll have the presentation as and when Mr. Matthew joins. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm just trying to position myself in a place where you can see me clearly. Sorry. Hi. Let's see here. Okay. Hello everyone. Good
Ma'am, you're not
afternoon.
audible.
Okay. Is it better now? Hello. Okay. Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Just a moment, attendees. No, ma'am, we can't
Can you
hear
hear me
you.
now? Okay. Mm, okay. Let me see. Is it better now? Um,
Just a moment, attendees. Miss Queen is just facing some audio issues that will be resolved. Just a moment, please.
We're in. I guess I'm just muted.
okay. Can you hear me now, everyone?
No, Miss Queen, we still can't hear you. Meanwhile, we'll just play the presentation from the factory video, and I hope your issue will be resolved by then. I would request my
All
team
right.
to play the presentation. Okay, Miss Queen, I think you're audible now. You can go ahead and take the lead. Those who have joined us now, we would like to tell you that the topic for this session is how mini grids are electrifying the region. And I would like to introduce my esteemed panel again. Today we have Miss Queen from Women in Renewable Energy. She'll be our moderator. Mr. Williams from Jinko Solar. Mr. Kalawale from NG Energy Access in Nigeria. Miss Cleopatra from Stella Futura, Miss Bajijo from Heaven Hills Energy Limited, and Mr. Okafor from Starside Energy Limited. Miss Badejo, would you like to initiate the conversation for today? And as soon as Miss Queen joins, we'll take it forward.
Okay, hello, Sakshi. I do not understand what you want me to do. Do you want me? I don't have to list of questions. How do you want me to initiate the conversation? Can you hear me, though?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello?
Miss Queen, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
I
can
think
hear her. I can
audio
hear.
I
issues
can
are
Can you?
hear.
happening.
I can hear Miss Queen. Actually, I can hear. I
Okay.
can hear.
Yeah, I think we can hear her.
Okay.
Ma'am, would
I'm
you
so
like
sorry
to
for.
get some headphones on?
Okay. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry for
we can hear her
technical.
very clearly.
Just a
We can hear
moment,
her very.
attendees. We'll start the session once this is resolved.
Okay.
We can hear Queen. Queen, can you hear me? We can hear
Yeah,
you and we
I
can
can
see
hear.
you, and
Mm,
everything is fine.
okay. So, can I proceed or do we wait for?
I
Ma'am, we
think you
still can't
can.
hear you.
We can actually. I think it's just Sakshi that can hear you.
It's actually, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. It's good now. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So sorry for all that technical difficulty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. Just want to say a special thank you to everyone who has joined us and is still currently connected to this virtual conference, the West Africa Solar Week, Western Africa Solar Week. My name is Queen Agomo. I'm the West Africa Regional Lead for the Women in Renewable Energy. I'm moderating this panel session and we'll be discussing on how mini grids are electrifying the West Africa region. And as we proceed, here are a few ground rules. I'd like to encourage the audience to post your questions and comments at any point during this discussion. For the panelists, please mute your mics when you're not speaking to reduce any noise disturbance. And please also feel free to turn on or turn off your webcam depending on your network bandwidth. So, to introduce this topic and set the context, I'll read three statistics published by the Nigerian SE for All, which says there's currently 12 megawatt installed capacity generated by mini grids in Nigeria. And secondly, there's over 171,000 people connected via mini grid in Nigeria. And lastly, there are over 135 communities connected by mini grid in Nigeria. So based on these statistics, it shows that mini grid has been instrumental in bridging the gap for electricity access in Africa, where an estimated 590 million people live without access to electricity. So mini grids are viable for communities where the population is too small or remote for grid extension, and where solar home systems, so the solar standalone systems, are not viable for larger electricity needs. Essentially, mini grids are independent, decentralized electricity networks that can function separately from or in conjunction with a national grid. To explore this topic further, I'll be inviting our panelists to introduce themselves. We have Mr. Williams, who is the head of sales West Africa for Jinko Solar. We also have Mr. Muyua, who is the head of customer experience at NG Energy Access. We have Ms. Cleopatra, the Africa Business Development Manager at Stella Futura. We have Ms. Abisola, who is the Chief Operating Officer, Haven Hill Synergy Limited. We have Mr. Okafor, who is the Senior Energy System Engineer at Starside Energy Limited. And so I'm going to call on them to give us about 30 minutes, 30 seconds to 1 minute introduction of themselves and their company and whatever they would like to let us know. So, Mr. Williams, please, over to you. Mr. Williams, are you there? You're muted, please, if you can hear me. Okay. While Mr. Williams is still trying to come on, let's move to the next person, Mr. Muiwa.
Hello, hi Queen. Hello everyone. You can hear me, right? Yes, you can.
Very well.
Right. My name is Muiwa Kawale. I work with NG Energy Access Nigeria. As you mentioned, I'm head of customer experience. So what we do at EEA in Nigeria is we offer energy solutions, renewable energy solutions, um, to customers, right? And mostly in off-grid communities. And our solutions range from uh, 10 watts solar home systems to mini grids right now that we're offering. In Nigeria now, we operate in about 14 states, and yeah, we have customers in the different range within that range from 10 watts up onto the mini grid across the region. We offer flexible payments, so our products, our solutions are financed, generally solar home solutions, so people can spread out their payments from 1 year to 2.5 years, and yeah, it's pay good technology, right? So lockout systems and all. Think as much as possible, we try to provide energy solutions for to just bridge that gap, to bridge that energy gap um, in areas where there's a lot of energy deficits across in the country. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muiwa. Can we have Ms. Cleopatra for her introduction, please? 30 seconds, 1 minute. Ms. Cleopatra, are you there with us? Okay, let's move to Ms. Abisola. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abisola Badijo. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Heaven Synergy. Heaven Synergy is an energy access company. We mainly focus on developing mini grids for off-grid and underserved communities. We also provide customized energy access solutions to commercial and industrial um, companies, that C&I customers. We also provide home solutions to private individuals. So basically, that's what Haven Hill Synergy does. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abisola. Can we have Mr. Okafo introduce himself?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Cornelius Okafor. I work as a senior energy solution engineer with Starsight Energy. Starsight is into the business of CNI business and utility scale solar for industries. We also, Starsight have established a great footprint in Nigeria's C&I solar space and is also expanding across the West African nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we have Mr. Williams if he's on now, or Miss Cleopatra if any of them is here? Okay. Okay, yeah, there we go. Mr. Williams, please, can you unmute yourself and speak? You can also share your video as well. We're still not able to hear you, sir. Your your mic indicates that you're muted. So if you could please check that, we'd like to have your introduction. Okay, so while we come back to Mr. Williams, we're just going to go and proceed into the questions with the panelists that we have currently here with us today. And please, just to thank you again for your introductions, but also to say that your voices were a little bit low. So please, when you're speaking and responding to the questions, please try to, amplify your voices. Thank you. So our first question today says, why are mini grids a pillar in the national electrification plans in Africa, in this region? And so I'm going to call on Mr. Muyiwa to just, kick this off for us. Why do you think mini grids are a pillar in the national electrification plans in the region?
Thank you very much, Queen. Uh, am I loud and clear enough?
Very well.
All right, that's good. Um, as of now in the country, right, 50 over 60 million people, so sorry, over 80 million Nigerians don't even have access to the grid at all, right? There's already a gap even with the 120 plus million that may have grid access. There's already a gap. It's not as if we have enough energy power generation to go around from our central grid, right? This is where mini grids comes in, right? Where there are 80 million people and not all clustered in the same location. So how do we make sure that these 80 million people spread across our 36 states and FCT still have access to electricity, right? I think that's where a good place in which mini grids can play right now. So we can actually, from REA, there's a lot of information around communities where they are totally off grid. So we can isolate some of these communities, and rather than think of a grid solution that works for all, how about we focus on reducing that deficit one community at a time? And that is where mini grids can come in, right? We know the role energy plays in national development generally, aside just the basic use cases of people having access to light. There's also the part of having to go around with their daily businesses so they can boost they contribute to the economy in their own locations, right? So mini grids are very important because now we can isolate some of these communities and we can actually build solutions that can work for them in little chunks, whether it's 50 kilowatts, 20 kilowatts, 90, whatever it is, right? But we can definitely build solutions for people, one community at a time, and offer them a chance to just be part of the development in which we hope to see across our country generally. Yeah, I think that's a part why one of the reasons why I think mini grid is quite important to our national development.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well said. I used to work with the Rural Electrification Agency of Nigeria, and we definitely deployed a ton of mini grid projects across the country. And there are some communities that we had entered whereby there were no electricity access whatsoever. And so mini grid was very viable for those kind of communities. And in Nigeria, we currently have the grid extension, we have solar home systems, and we have some other alternative power sources as well. But mini grid has actually helped to, bring some communities into the into it, like basically light them up and bring them basically to have access to electricity. And so absolutely, Mr. Muiwa, I agree with your comments. We're going to calling Mrs. Abisola, and just I don't know if she's still there. Please, if you're there, just tell me you are. Let me know. And Mr. Williams, please get ready as well. So please, your question is how many mini grids how are mini grids powering the households in the region? So in Nigeria, in West Africa, depending on where Haven Hill is situated, what are the preferred models in this region? Can you touch base on this question?
For like in Nigeria specifically, we have most of the time you have solar mini grids and hybrid mini grids being deployed to power underserved communities in this region. Well, across the world, there are various technologies that are being used apart from those two that we use majorly in Nigeria. So you have solar mini grids, wind mini grids, hydro mini grids, and hybrid mini grids. Solar, like the name implies, harnesses energy from the sun. Wind harnesses energy from the wind. Hydro harnesses energy from water. And hybrid is a renewable source coupled with a non-renewable source, such as diesel system or gas or other renewable sources. That's where you have hybrid mini grids. Now, more popularly in Nigeria, you find more of solar mini grids and hybrid mini grids being
Please, can you
deployed
speak
to
up a little bit more? Sorry, your sound is muffled. Thank you.
Okay, give me a few minutes.
Okay, sure. We'll definitely give you a few minutes. So we'll take someone else and we'll come back to you. Mr.
Okay.
Williams, are you on there now? Mr. Williams, can you hear me? And if you can, please respond. Okay. I think Mr. Williams, please try to disconnect and reconnect back. That might help you. That's what helped me earlier. Mr. Muyo, I'm going to call on you again, please. Um, and I when you talked about mini grid being, sorry, Miss Abisola, can you mute your mic? When you talked about mini grid being a pillar for the pillar of the national electrification plans for Nigeria and for the region, I didn't hear you mention how it's actually helping agro-allied industries and the other value chains. Can you talk more about that? Because basically standalone systems don't have the capacity to take on all this PUEs, productive use of electricity. So can you touch base a bit more about that area? You there, Mr. Miwa?
I am here. I lost you for a millisecond. I think there was something with the network on your end, I assume, for a second. But from let me just summarize what I think you're asking. How mini grids can support with productive use appliance customers? Yeah.
Yes, so
Um,
basically, when you come into a community that doesn't have power at all, especially for mini grids, you definitely look at all the businesses that are using generators, right? And so mini
yeah.
grid actually helps to replace those, generate fossil fuel powered electrification. So can you talk more about how that is working and what you're also doing in NG based on that?
Yes. Thanks for that. Right. So, initially when I spoke about how mini grids could help contribute to economic development. Right. So,
I'm there now. I'm there now.
oof, all right, good.
Sorry, go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, how we could help build economic development. I think when for us as a business, right? If we're looking at developing a mini grid in any particular location, appliances productive use users are very key. They are very key to our business. Why? Because aside people that are mainly just consuming, right? What this means is that we can help out the economy by making sure that that guy that does his rice mill, that has a rice mill in this community, can also be able to do his milling and produce more rice for that community. That's agric. That's food. That's make sure that make aside now I have electricity and we can actually also do business and people can also eat, right? For instance, now we have a mini grid, 90 kilowatt mini grid in a community in called Bangba in Bida local government in Niger State, right? And we've seen a lot of productive users out there, and we can in about 6 months of operating that mini grid now, you can see how a lot of them have been able to save a lot of money on diesel, right? Of diesel, because right now we all know how that cost has gone up a lot this year. So
Yeah.
people have saved costs. People have been able to produce more, right? We have businesses like welders that are doing well now. There's a bakery in Bangba community that they are able to run their business now. There are millers, that's rice mills, and all of that happening in this community now. And what that has helped with now is they have been able to move away from diesel and focus, or now they have access to this supply of electricity via a mini grid in that community. So aside people consuming, using electricity, using light bulbs, using fans, using their whatever, watching televisions, we also have people that are doing their businesses and feeding off this mini grid. And it just works, right? Because it's this interconnected system, and different people are using different things at different points in time. So there's enough power to go around, and people can actually live their lives, build their businesses, and that's what little things like that helps build power and economy. So it just goes beyond just being able to even see and read, which is very important. They're very important use cases that maybe solar home systems could help with. But now we've seen a lot of productive use also, thanks to mini grids, and that's very good. It's just outlines another very big importance of building mini grids. But yes, I think it's something to consider, that we consider as a business when we are looking at how locations in which to plug in our um, mini grids. Also, right now it's not we're not necessarily a for profit a non-profit organization, right? So we're also for profit. So it's easy. Productive users are very likely pay to pay, because of course it's tit for tat for them, right? They get energy, they are able to produce, they are able to make money, they're able to sell, they can pay in return, right? And it's something that just it's a win-win for everyone. It's a win-win for everyone. We achieve what we want by powering your community, powering your home, powering your life. You are able to produce and basically just contribute to the economy, contribute to your own pocket, and also we get some money in return to continue to do that in the next community and the next community after that. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm very grateful for your response. Definitely encapsulates what I was asking for. Thank you. Mr. Bisola, it's your mic ready to go now?
Just let me know. Can you hear me clearly now?
Oh, perfect. Excellent. So now let's ask this question again. How are mini grids powering households in Africa? What are the preferred models here?
Okay, so I'm going to start with the technologies that we currently use to power mini grids and households in Africa. So basically, across the world, we have four major technologies being deployed. You have solar mini grids, wind mini grids, hydro mini grids, and then hybrid mini grids. And solar mini grids access energy from the sun, wind mini grids harness energy from the wind, hydro mini grids harness energy from water, and hybrid mini grids are either a combination of a renewable source or and a non-renewable source, where you have a mini grid with a diesel diesel generator or a gas generator as support, or you have two renewable sources, maybe a solar and a hydro mini grid, or you have a mini grid with backup batteries. So you have those technologies being deployed across Africa. Now, you have current 300 and actually 385 mini grids are currently operating in West Africa, and we have 170 relying on PV battery and about 188 on hybrid PV diesel battery technologies. That's just a rough statistics of what's going on. Now, for the operational models of these mini grids, you have utility operated mini grids where the power utility of that region builds the mini grid, operates the mini grid. They are responsible for installation, repair, maintenance, tariff collection, and the operation of the mini grid. You also have private sector operated mini grids where you have indigenous or international developers seek for finance, build mini grids with the aim to make profit, and then they also operate those mini grids and manage them. So some of these private sector owned mini grids try to generate from the funding, like I said, from various sources, including equity, commercial loans, and debt. Now you also have community operated mini grids where
The mini grid is operated and managed by the end users, by the community, and is organized by regulation, by government regulations, governed by government regulations. And finally, you have hybrid models. And hybrid models are usually a combination of either two or the three previous models that I mentioned. And this is where you have, like in Nigeria, tripartite agreements for interconnected mini grids, where you have the utility, the private sector, the community, all working together to operate a mini grid. So that's a model that is very popular here in Nigeria, because you understand that the grid might still get, even though at that point those communities are off grid, the grid might still get to those communities. Or you have an interconnected mini grid where you have mini grids using the existing distribution assets of a utility that is present in a community that their energy access is not reliable. So you have a duos and a tripartite agreement in those situations. So those are the models that you have, the main mini grid operation models that you have available in the region today. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. So mini grids, solar mini grids, hybrid mini grids, and interconnected mini grids. You go into an agreement with the community, go into agreement with the chief and the locals. You agree on the tariff, and you deploy your solutions. And then the grid can also extend to those communities in the space of 10 years. So hopefully within that period, the developer or the solar company has been able to recuperate their profits. So yeah, these are the models that are currently running in this space in Nigeria. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Abisola. I'm going to call on Mr. Williams. I think he has fixed his mic now. Am I correct?
Yes, Queen.
Awesome. Please, can you introduce yourself before I ask you a question?
Sorry, I think earlier I had a bit of network connection, but now I'm
Please speak
in.
out as well. Thank you.
My name is Williams Osai. I'm the head of sales for Jinko Solar, covering the West African market. Pleased to be here for this webinar within this session. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on here. I wanted to just ask you about what you think is the progress being made with the mini grid regulations. So, how is mini grid contributing to energy access in the region, in the country, Nigeria, in West Africa? What's the progress being made with regards to mini grid regulations? How is it contributing to energy access?
Thank you very much for that question. A lot of things are happening in the energy space. We try to bridge the energy gap that we see within the region. Because we see there are things that are we see that are obvious within the region. We see the demand for energy, and also see the gap for energy, and a lot of stakeholders, both from the government side and the private sector, everyone is trying to find the best solution to solve this problem that is facing us. So, with regards to the regulation, in terms of government side, we see a lot of framework that government is putting in place to be able to, solve this problem, provided decentralized solutions to rural communities where you have some communities you don't have power supply at all, and some you have, but it's not enough. So a lot of things are happening within that space. So, and we see a lot of activities, engagement, side of the private sector, and try to go into that and solve the power challenge. So, and one thing that I see will also help us is a bit of, what's the story for us in West African market. We see a lot of, for instance, in the Middle East, you hear something like desert to power. So suddenly you see a desert, and you're no longer looking at this desert because renewable energy can be deployed massively in those locations to be able to generate renewable energy and solve power challenge. Then we see the likes of climate change, right? So if you are in Europe, for instance, that resonates very well. Then for us in Africa is also part of the issue, trying to solve the climate change, but we also need to narrow it down in such a way that the regulation we have in place, we'll be able to have a kind of story that will really unlock the potential regards to bridging the energy gap. So we need to see the regulation, trying to address the issue of industrialization, also bringing in the issue of bridging the, the poverty gaps that we have. So it kind of it's a story that will help to resonate with people to be able to accelerate the deployment of mini grids to solving power issues within the region. So government is doing a lot, but we'll see a bit of bottlenecks. But with all the necessary engagement, I think we're on the right track, solving it bit by bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Please, if we have Miss Cleopatra and Mr. Yeah, if we have Miss Cleopatra, please let me know. So we're going to call on Mr. Okafor. Are you still there? Okay, thank you. So I wanted to ask you to talk more about the green mini grid facility and how this can be replicated in other markets. Mr. Okafor? Okay, so we'll come back to him when his network is more stable. I'm going to call on Mr. Muyiwa now. Thanks for your reliable network. Please just want you to basically talk to us more about mini grids in the sense that, mini grids, my experience with mini grids is that most of the times you see that a developer or a company goes into a community and installs a mini grid, and most of the times the capacity is pretty high and then the usage is very low. So these are locals who are not used to electricity at all, right? And that also means they don't really have enough, source of income. These are households that don't have enough source of income to pay their utility. They're not even used to paying utility because they've been living without electricity, right, for donkey years. And then a company comes and installs a mini grid in that community, and these residents are happy. Some of them they think it's free, and when you tell them to pay, you realize that they pay, but they use it to the barest minimum. And so that poses a big challenge for mini grid developers. You see that then they have a high turnover, they have a high duration to make their profit, to break even, right? So this huge install capacity that exists in that community is not being utilized. Can you talk about possible solutions to these challenges? What are you doing in NG to fix this, to remedy this issue?
Thank you very much, Quinn. Thank you for that question. Yes, what you describe is a real challenge we're facing across the country generally. There, we, a lot of communities, a lot of people have gotten used to having no access to electricity. It's sad, but it's the reality in which they live, right? Right now, it still remains a challenge because it's what you're asking of them it's 100% behavioral shift, right? I think for us as at EEA, for communities like that, what we tend to do is start off because we also play in the solar home system space. We try to start off with a few users that get it, that we can actually just start them off with solar home systems, so people can actually see that some people are using electricity, can't have access to electricity, and what it is doing for them, right? But for us, because we are, of course, a business, right? What we try to do is because there are many communities without electricity, we have we take steps to do proper due diligence before we go ahead to say, okay, this is a site for a mini grid for us as a company, right? And our due diligence process involves understanding the needs of those ones in the community. Aside from the fact that we check to see, okay, if they need it, if they are happy to use it, we also try to see if they can afford to pay for it. So, what do they do in this community? How do they get income, right? Because it's one thing to say, okay, oh, they need it. It's another thing for to see if they can actually afford to pay for it, right? Which is why we find that balance between productive use and just the consumptive users, right, in the different communities in which we serve. So there's a rigorous due diligence process before we actually say, okay, we're going ahead to build, right? As of now, we haven't even we have a list of a pipeline of over 100 communities across the country that we have identified and earmarked, like, okay, these are viable communities, but we have actually checked 200 plus, right? One of the reasons why we are right now just deprioritizing some locations is what you just described now, because maybe they need it but they can't pay for it, or maybe they don't even know whether they need it at this time, right? Mini grids are expensive, so it's not what you want to gamble and say, oh, I'll build it and then they will like it and they will use it. Because if they don't, it's not like I can go and uninstall one panel and say, okay, I'm removing this and carry it and go, something like that, right? So I think we just try to make sure we do the right due diligence and make sure that we know that, okay, we find that balance between productive use cases. In most instances, productive users tend to be familiar with using generators for their business, but maybe it just limits the amount of time in which they can actually run their business in a day and things like that, right? So we find that balance, making sure that we get people, we know we have people that want this electricity, they see the value and they are willing to use it, and those ones that, okay, they know they need it, they just don't have access to it, and that's it's at that point, right, that we actually get go ahead and go ahead with construction of the mini grids right now. Yeah, so that, I think that's where we are right now with that. That's what we try to do as regards what can be done around those users that don't even know in which they how if they need it. I think as what they are used to not having, right, so they don't know what they are missing, right. But as we continue to isolate few people within their communities and plug them in via solar home systems, they can also see the need for why, okay, I also want this. I can also, my child can also go to school and come back home and study. I can also go to sleep at night without necessarily burning a candle, right? Because hey, I can use this product for the same cost of a candle and to last longer and it's safer, right? I think a fellow panelist mentioned climate change, right, and how definitely just need to pay more attention to our environment and the kind of gases in which we release out there. So right, yes. So I think what we try to do now is in communities like that, we just focus on our solar home system business and just isolate individuals within those communities that feel the need that they need electricity and use them as to preach the word on energy access generally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Muiwa. Well said. I just also want to invite you to answer another question while I still have you here. Please, what other challenges are you facing as a company with mini grids in the sector in this region?
Um, yeah, financing. Right, that's one, right. Financing, that's a very huge one, right, because it requires it requires a very big upfront cost to produce, right. It's not yeah, mini grids are expensive, right. There's it's you literally building the whole process from aside building the grid, then you are going to transmit, distribute, and all of those things, right, within one community, right. So finance is a very big challenge, right. And I think uh, for us now, I think you may have heard, like very recently, within the last few weeks, we recently signed an agreement with CBEA, that's Cross Boundary Energy Access, where they are willing to finance um, a mini grid via NG in Nigeria to the tune of $60 million. The goal is to make sure that we connect 150,000 people to electricity within the next 4 years, and I think that's something that is very helpful right now, right? So it's going to be owned by them, but we will operate and we'll build and manage this mini grid, right? Generally, we have been doing this even outside of Nigeria, we in about 8 other countries in Africa right now. So there's a lot of learnings in which we have gained from building mini grids across the countries, across the years that we that has made us go ahead to sign this deal with cross boundary. So now we that part of finance, at least for now, we have that backing to make sure that to say we can go ahead now and just build and try to just within the next 4 years connect 150,000 people to electricity, right? I think 60 million is not small cash, and if you look at this, right, if you're trying to bring it down to per unit, that's a very big challenge for communities. If I decide to build a mini grid on my own, it's there's that cost in it. Aside the cost bit, that's the financing bit, right? We also need to find reliable partners in which we can that can actually do the construction of some of these mini grids, right? It's right now we have faced challenges in the past with EPCs. That's what's the full meaning? Our procurement and construction engineers, right? That
Engineering,
yes,
yeah,
engineering,
construction.
procurement, and construction, right? With EPCs in while building mini grids, right? Because you get to some point, and then there are a lot of things that you're just wondering what's the capacity of this individual, or what's the capability of this. How many mini? We have a lot of mini grids across the country, but not enough people have the capacity and capability to build the right system, the balance systems that will balance the load and help make sure that everyone in the different communities get the power in which you set out to offer, right? So those are two challenges that I think uh, we are facing, that we have faced. Now, I think for us, we have been very fortunate to now, at this point, now we have a very huge pipeline for EPCs, which was one of the criteria to making sure that we could land this agreement with the CBEA. We have a very huge pipeline of EPCs, so the project just has to keep going, right? The goal now is to electrify if 150,000 people within the next 4 years via mini grids across different cities in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muyiwa, and congratulations to you and Angie for that, finance that you've just received from Cost Boundary. Excellent. Wish you all the best with that. And also thank you for answering the question in regards to, how you handle high capacity systems and low usage. Definitely, due diligence is important. Feasibility is important. When you're doing mini grids, are very critical. If not, you're just going to dump money or waste money, and it's not, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And also, I wanted to also add, based on my experience at the REA, what we began to do for developers was to have them, after they do the due diligence, start really small. Like, so basically underestimate the need for the power in that community. Start really small, and when they use it up to that point, then you can increase, and with that you see that you actually have more cost effectiveness. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to call Mrs. Abisola to just talk more about power theft. Power theft is a big problem for mini grids in communities. How are you and Haven Hill, how are you mitigating this issue?
Okay, thank you. So, power theft is a big problem, not only in mini grids, across the entire distribution sector in the power sector. So, first of all, people are actually not used to having energy and therefore not used to paying for that electricity. And then, like a lot of people have emphasized, mini grids are expensive they have a very high capital cost and also to maintain. So we must actually make profits from these mini grids. So when you now have energy theft, when you have people using energy without paying, where you can't account for every energy that is generated and consumed in a mini grid, and it becomes a problem. That means your financial model numbers become lopsided. So as a result, you can attack this through various means. And presently, as even using energy, the first would be smart metering. So you have meters that monitor electricity consumption. You have capped power consumption. You know what a particular kind of customer. After you've done your energy audit and energy audit during the customer enumeration process, you know what the different kinds of customers are. The energy they can consume within a certain range. And as a result, you monitor this energy consumption from the UI, the back end of these smart meters. So you have meters on site, and then you can access and see the energy consumption pattern of a particular customer from the back end, right from your office. So that's the first stage. So as a result, if you see any irregularity in this process or any irregularity in electric consumption, you can either turn off the meter or send an on-site operator to check what is going on with the customer meter. So that's one. Two, we have processes whereby we have a lot of quality control processes in Haven Hill in the operations department where we see a customer's vending pattern for 3 months, for a 3 month period. We check it out. And if you see a customer that's not vended in a 3 month period, then you place a call to the customer and find out what is going on. It's also a way for customer engagement, but we are trying to find out why have you not vended? What is going on? Is your meter connected? Is this happening? It's just another way to ensure that the information that we get on the metering platform is also being accounted for. And then other ways we do this is we also engage the community. These people are right here. And we let them know that if you have energy theft ongoing within your community, then it doesn't help us to help you. You sensitize the community on the importance of them paying for electricity that they use. It is from this payment that we can maintain, that we can improve the quality of supply that you have, that your supply can be reliable. So when you sensitize the community, they now take ownership of this. And so you see, if you have a particular customer that his meter is damaged and is now energy theft. You have community members calling the company and saying, okay, I think this is happening here. I think this is happening here because you've used they themselves, you've created them as pseudo watchdogs within their communities to take ownership of the electricity that is being generated in the community. So first of all, like I said, the first thing we do is to use smart metering. We can monitor the customer's usage from the backend via their meter, using meters that show you the customer consumption on a daily and on a monthly basis. Secondly, you engage the customers after monitoring their vending patterns for a 3 month period. We use a 3 month period here in Haven Hill. You monitor their vending plan for a 3 month period and you find out what is going on. And lastly, you engage the community, you sensitize the community on the importance of paying for electricity, on what this money is used for. One more thing we do here at Haven Hill is having a remote monitoring system. So apart from the metering platform, we have an overall remote monitoring system that aggregates all the devices that we have and the customers on the mini grid plant. So in the power plant, you have different equipment made from different manufacturers who also have their different UIs to monitor their equipment remotely. You have the meters, then you have the customer lines, their poles, their GIS locations. So the remote monitoring platform aggregates all this information and we can see the mini grid community live at the office. We can see pole to pole connections. We can see it on a map view. And so we can know that this meter is on, this meter is off at every point in time. So most of the time, basically, the best way to monitor this is to have a remote monitoring system and a smart metering system. So you're not relying on manpower and legwork to go from house to house, checking their meters on a monthly or a daily basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Williams, please can I have you come on? I would like to also ask you on how, how do we mitigate this flood situation when it comes to a community that is flooded and there's mini grid? Like, what are possible solutions to mitigate against a flooded mini grid um, assets in a community? I mean, the climate change is real. There's so much flood issues in the country. What are your take? What's your take? What are your solutions to this issue?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's a question that just like what Angie has said before you cite a mini grid, there are a couple of things that you need to check. You know, it's an asset, and the asset is an expensive one. It's an investment that's supposed to be there for a long time. So the siting of the location also need to be considered with respect to flooding. Of course, there are issues that are beyond beyond control. You can call those ones force majeure. It can happen. But on the basis of citing the location, I think it's part of what also RAE they do, try to work together with the Odyssey to be able to cite locations that are viable for mini grid deployment. And
Thank
even on
you.
that, you also need to do your own homework as the developer to be able to get the right location. So and most of the time there's no issues with that because going by the mini grid deployment and also the technology involved in it, we see that it also actually has a higher rate of uptime. You can get up to 99% uptime from the mini grid going by the technology that OEM partners are also deploying on the PV side, on the energy storage side. So you see this equipment there for a long haul. They can stand the test of time, bearing other issues that are also out of control. So these are systems that are rugged and when properly sited, will stay there for a long period. For instance, you have the PV panels that can stay for 30 years, especially with the TopCon technology that we have from Jinko. The panels can be there for the next 30 years generating, and also the BESS. So you deploy a system that in the next 10 years we don't have issues with respect to the battery system because it's performing optimally.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. Just also want to ask you another question as well. What opportunities do you envisage for the mini grid sector in Nigeria, in Africa? What are the opportunities that are coming to light that we should know about, and how can we, plug into it?
Yeah, in terms of opportunity, we have like almost a 50% of population that is not on grid. So, and that's a large number of people not on grid. So, and what that means is that the national grid didn't get to those locations. They are completely off grid. So it presents both challenge and opportunity, where you have to look in terms of do I extend the grid to those locations, or what is the cost-effective solution that I can use to solve those problems. So you now think in terms of a decentralized solution where you begin to look at the communities, bit by bit. So, and also we see a situation where government is putting some framework in place, and also Rural Education, Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, also on their larger scale, that's AMDA, also putting some suggestions in place where this deployment can actually be done in form of portfolio. So instead of talking in terms of side by side, so we are talking about a couple of sites put together. Think what NG is already doing, like 100 sites put together. So you have those are the kind of opportunities that present themselves. There are problems, but also opportunities, and that cut across the West African market. So what I mean is that with government framework and stakeholder engagement and technology partners, then we can have a very reliable source of power supply deployed to these communities to bridge the energy gaps.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Okafor, can I have you answer this question? What are the key triggers that we need to have to scale the mini grid sector in Africa, in West Africa, in Nigeria? What triggers, I mean, what other opportunities do you envisage that is required to grow the mini grid sector? Because as I speak now, I know that solar home system is also gaining momentum because of the fact that it's very, decentralized to each households, right? So how do we also scale up the mini grid sector? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Queen. Of course, one of the major challenges we've seen in the mini grid sector have been the financial challenges, especially going to the fact that mini grid is more capital intensive when when compared to the likes of the solar home system or the light. And so, for instance, to deploy a mini grid, mini grid is not what you have to. say you are procuring in batches. You must have the assets deployed at site before you start thinking of getting the revenue as projected in your financial model. So that forms a key, one of the serious concern with regards to mini grid. Although in recent times we have seen some improvement in terms of finance through grants and some other subsidies coming up, but then it's still not at the rate at which the projections are, despite comparing the fact that the percentage of the of percentage of people that still lack access to electricity, and then the especially the rural communities. So to hasten that pace, we still need more of those finance to assist developers. Of course, another thing we're also looking at, apart from the grant aspect of it, we can we can say that despite the fact that grant is coming, we can also say that for from the local aspect in terms of having the commercial institutions assist in this financial crisis, financial issues by giving a less interest loan for renewable energy and mini grid development. Initially, although initially around let's say 3 years ago, you hardly see most financial institutions buying into granting loans for electricity projects. But luckily, can see some of them coming up, the likes of some FCMB and Sterling Bank that are already giving out having some green loans to developers. With this, if other key commercial institutions can also buy into debt, we can see the mini grid development going well at a more encouraging speed. For now, we are seeing this in Nigeria, but for some other African countries, it may not happen. It may not be happening now. But then we there is what one of the keyest area where they can actually buy into to be able to develop mini grids. Again, the second one is actually the regulatory frameworks. Nigeria have done well so far by enacting the mini grid regulation in 2016 or thereabouts. And then these have actually helped improve the number of mini grids in Nigeria. And as we speak, we are having more than 100 mini grids currently operating and going going higher. And these are because of the mini grid regulations. We have also seen other similar regulations that allows interconnected mini grids coming up in Nigeria. These are the key areas where we can buy into. Some West African countries who have not adopted those guides kind of regulatory frameworks can actually buy into that to help increase their energy access, especially for rural electrification and so. So with this, one other key things is also quality and standardization of products and say components. Of course, the one of the challenges which we had in Nigeria for sometimes is the fact that they mentioned that solar does not work. The likes of the former street lights in 2020 or the around 2010 or those kind of things. Everybody used to say that
Yeah,
solar does not work.
government funded, government
Yes,
owns
government
light.
owns projects that they used to do solar street light. After 3 months, they will not work again. So, but in recent times, we've been seeing a very huge improvement in those aspects. And these are the areas where we can actually strengthen the aspect of solar energy, solar products with regards to components we are using for deploying mini grids. Thank God we are already having the likes of the OEMs coming on ground. This one is not a fact that they are somewhere in China discussing over the phone or discussing having meeting, all those kinds. We have some of them already on ground to actually study the market needs, discuss with the developers on their needs, and be able to go back to kind of develop more resilient technology that can suit the conditions in the local conditions in Nigeria. So quality is actually one of the key areas. Standard organization have also done is also doing some things in terms of those area, trying to bring out a what's it called, standard specifications for some of the components in the solar home system or the solar home system products. The NEMSA and the likes are also working on the are also develop have also developed some specifications for mini grid guidelines. So areas these areas coming up, um, we can actually ensure that mini grids are being optimal, mini grid development are actually going in the right way, and in a way that it will stand the test of time.
sustainable, and
Yes.
30 years down the line these systems assets are still working. Thank you so much, especially for bringing in the component of quality standards, for the components. Very, very critical. And I think Mr. Muyu had mentioned something about that when you talk about EPC partners and having issues with finding very qualified ones. Thank you. That's a problem, and definitely good that you mentioned that. It's good that we, purchase quality products from quality partners. I think our time is a bit up, is running out. Just so I'm going to have just one question for everybody, or just like a final closeout remark. I'm just going to start with Mr. Muyiwa. Is there anything else you would like us to know about mini grids in this sector, in terms of its sustainability, in terms of the future? Because especially mini grid is been okay. There's a question
Yeah.
on the screen.
Okay.
Okay, mini grid is. Sakish, before we bring in the questions, we just have this one question for everybody. Then we'll bring in the comments from the users. But I wanted to just mention this point that mini grid is actually saturated in Nigeria as we speak. I don't know about other African countries in the region, but you see that since mini grid came into operation 2016, there's a whole lot of mini grids in communities. Now the question is it being optimized? That's another question which we already talked about earlier. However, how do we go forward? Mini grid is saturated. How do we go forward? What are the other areas? Because right now you see that um, solar home system is gaining momentum. How can mini grid be sustainable? So I think this is my final question for the panelists before we bring in questions from the audience. Mr. Muyiwa, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm on the school of thought that it's not yet saturated, right? I'm on school of thought that there's still a lot of work, and there's still a lot
Yes.
of, and that's because there's still a lot of gap with people that don't have access to this electricity, right? Um, I think when we talk about saturation, maybe there are a lot of players, there are a lot of locations, but there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. We'll talk about saturation when there are too many players, fewer sites. We'll talk about saturation when, so for me, in my own opinion, right, I think it's not as necessarily saturated, but generally, I think it should be a big part of our future right now as a country. I'm talking about Nigeria right now. Different countries have their own different challenges with electricity, but we have a very big challenge here in country, right? I think a co-panelist talked about legislation and that could help, that could further help uh, is entrance of mini grid players, or even existing players into different communities. I think that's something that we also need, right, in terms of legislation. I think the energy transition bill that was recently launched will be very helpful, as it basically is going to open up a lot of discourse around how to achieve the set goals that Nigeria has for the country. And I think mini grids as well as solar home systems will have their own parts to play in closing this gap, right? So yes, I think that's it from me, right? There's still a lot of room. We still are probably talking 80 million people, right? Around that,
Yeah.
if you are even sure what that number is. There are hundreds of communities, right? That even within communities, you probably will even see people building two different mini grids within the same community because of some density, depending on the population density in such a community, right? So I think there's still a lot of room for mini grids. I think because of how we also we find communities that are just and the population density again I mentioned, right? We will still see use cases for a lot of solar home systems also, right? Also, I think as I mentioned earlier, solar home systems will play a very big part in communities where the general populace they are just used to no electricity, right? And you just find those people that are just standing out, that could be the Adam, like the first man and all of that, that could help spread that message or around the electricity and what it could benefit them. Because someone that doesn't know use electricity, does not know electricity, cannot you cannot tell the person what the benefit of electricity is, because I have known life without it all my life. It's what I know. It's how life is. It's how life should be, right? So we just continue to need that Adam that will help to preach the gospel on the SHS. But mini grids, there's still a lot of room. A lot of communities, we need more legislation, more policies that will help, that will ease access. It's already a problem with cost of procurement and building. Right now, we don't necessarily need challenges when we're entering communities, and then there's a ballet, there's an emir, there's a king, there's this local government, and all these bottlenecks that tend to just that are not necessarily documented, that affect construction of some of these things in these communities. I think good legislation and policies around it from the government will also be helpful in closing that gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, sir. And thank you, Miss Queen. You did an excellent job. Thank you so much for the terrific and very professional example that you set as a moderator. It was a pleasure having you in such a well planned and high energy panel discussion. And thank you, all the panelists, for taking out time and joining us for this event and sharing your valuable insights on this topic. So, with this, we have come to the end of day one of Western Africa Solar Week 2022. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for an exciting and insightful panel discussion on rooftop solar, future advancements in project models, finance and technology, followed by the prestigious award ceremony. Till then, goodbye from our end, and now the floor is open for networking. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Saxi.
you. Thank you, Saskia.
Thank you.